everyone, my name's Jacqueline. It's so nice to meet you. I'm 16 years old and a junior in high school, and I love to advocate for people who have learning disabilities, more so dyslexia and dyscalculia, because I have those two myself. Today's video, we're going to be talking about what dyscalculia is, some signs of dyscalculia, how to explain to someone with an analogy what it's like to live with a learning disability, and hopefully some misconceptions about dyscalculia. Wow, that's a lot we're going to be talking about, but we got this. I hope you stick to the end of this video. It's going to be awesome, so please buckle up, get strapped in. Let's hop into this video. So I do just want to give a massive disclaimer. I'm only 16. Like I said before, I do not have any doctorate degrees or any training, anything. This is just my own knowledge I'm going to be sharing with you, as well as I've done some internet research across many websites, so I'm giving you some of that information as well. All of the sources that I'm going to be telling you today will be in the description box below. Just so you know, they're really great sources, so please check them out if you'd like to. There's a lot of people who wonder if they could have something like dyslexia, but where it doesn't affect reading, it actually affects math. And yes, there is a term for that. It's called dyscalculia. Now, I'm just going to slow it down. I pronounce it as dyscalculia. A lot of other people with multiple different accents say it differently, so that's just how I'm going to pronounce it throughout this video. Dyscalculia is kind of a funky word, wouldn't you say? So what in the world does that even mean? Let's break it down. The prefix dys means badly or difficult. Calculia actually comes from the Latin word calculare, which essentially just means calculation. So if we put it all together, it means difficulty with calculations. So the first definition is from Google, and I feel like I should like Google's definition, but I really don't. So let me tell you what it is. It says that dyscalculia is having difficulty in performing arithmetical calculations resulting from damage to the brain. Brain, are you working? Are you damaged? Yeah, my brain, let me tell you, is not damaged, and neither is yours. I think what they're getting at there possibly is that you can have dyscalculia from injuries, but that's pretty rare. Usually dyscalculia, as of right now, is found out that it is hereditary, which just means that it runs through your family line, and that is the same with dyslexia. I'll be putting this source of definition number 2 down below, so please check it out. It's from Attitude magazine, and it says, dyscalculia is a math learning disability that impairs an individual's ability to learn number-related concepts, perform accurate math calculations, reason and problem solve, and perform other basic math skills. I just love that definition because it actually tells you that dyscalculia affects these multiple different areas in math, not just that we have damage to our brains. Let's talk about this question for a minute. If dyscalculia is super closely related to dyslexia, they share a lot of overlaps with one another, why do not more people know about it? A lot of people don't know what dyscalculia is because of the lack of research. Now, there is ongoing research for dyslexia, and it's being done by the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, as well as the National Institutes of Health. However, I think that's awesome. However, when I looked on the internet if there was any dyscalculia research being done, I did not find anything. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't ongoing research for dyscalculia. It just means that me doing my little web searches didn't come up with anything. All in all, because there's a higher percentage of research being done on dyslexia, more people know about it. And because there's such a low rate of dyscalculia research, a lot of people don't know it exists. How many people have dyscalculia? This is a quote. According to a study done in 2019, 3 to 7% of all children, adolescents, and adults suffer from dyscalculia. I don't really like the term suffer, so I'm just going to say have dyscalculia. And then I also read that people who have dyscalculia and dyslexia, that affects 30 to 40% of the population. And then people who have ADHD and dyscalculia, that is 10 to 20% of the population. You've made it to the portion of the video where I'm going to be telling you an analogy of what it's like to live with a learning disability. And you out there, if you have a learning disability or if you don't, I hope that this makes sense to you, and I hope that you can relate it into your own life a little bit. Let me tell it to you. Let's pretend that you're a driver. You're driving on the road, things are going smoothly, the birds are chirping, the sun is out, but all of a sudden, you gotta slam on those brakes because there is mile-long traffic ahead. And as you're slowing down, you start to become pretty frustrated because you're looking to the left and to the right, and all the other lanes around you are not stopped. It's only your lane. And that's making you really mad because you have places to go, things to do, and now you're stuck in this traffic. It's important to remember in this moment that it's not your fault that you're stuck in traffic, and you're not a bad driver because you happen to be stuck in traffic. It's just that the situation you're in right now is not ideal. What happens next? There are multiple ways that you could approach this situation. You could give up on driving. You could call a friend because you're not sure how long you're going to be stuck in this traffic for, or just wait it out. And the other possibility, which I really like, is you could take a detour, figure out a different way to your destination. That kind of ends the analogy portion. Now let me tie it into how it's like having a learning disability. The traffic in this situation is kind of just difficulties showing up in someone's life, but I also want you to hear me when I say there's always going to be different approaches you can take to get to your destination or to reach your goal. People who have learning disabilities experience this traffic constantly, and sometimes it's sudden, and sometimes you know you're about to experience this traffic, but it shows up all the time. And I think this analogy is fantastic because a lot of people who have learning disabilities, they scan the roads or they scan the classroom or their workspace and they compare themselves. They think my pace is so much slower than other people's pace, that makes me stupid. Also, a lot of people experience the frustration, and sometimes they don't want to be frustrated at the situation, it just happens in their life. That is valid. Whatever feelings you're feeling when you're stuck in this traffic jam is valid. When I was diagnosed with dyscalculia when I was 14 years old, I had an aha moment because it explained so much as to why math has always been so difficult for me to understand. I want to share how learning math for me sometimes feels. So when I learn math, I hear the person's words and I see the instructions. The math goes in one ear and out the other. I just cannot retain it. And I genuinely do care about learning and I want to know how to complete the math, but I just cannot remember. The other little part of it is when I learn something one day and have to do it the next day, I'll see the problem and it looks brand new to me. I feel on the inside like I've never seen this problem before. My math teacher definitely did not explain this to me, when in reality they did. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense for you when people are struggling. And if you always thought that, oh my gosh, math really does go in one ear and out the other, you aren't wild in imagining that you may have something else going on in your life, like a learning disability. But also, please don't self-diagnose yourself with dyscalculia with just this one video. You guys have made it to the signs of dyscalculia, so I'm gonna pull out my laptop again and talk to you about some of them. The first sign. People who have dyscalculia may avoid math situations, math games, or assignments. They put it to the bottom of their to-do list and focus on everything else just because they know it's going to be very tricky for them to understand. The second term, poor number sense. Yeah, I didn't hear this term before like 2 days ago, so I had to Google it and I searched it up, and this is the definition of what number sense means. A person's ability to understand, relate, and connect numbers. That is it. That is the key. That is really, really, truly what we do struggle with if we have dyscalculia. My next sign I'm going to be saying is people who have dyscalculia struggle with basic math concepts. Something as simple simple, as 2 plus 3 equals 5 and 3 plus 2 equals 5. This is a pretty simple problem that a lot of people would not struggle with. But for me, when I look at this, even the numbers being in a different order, I expect a different answer. But in reality, it's going to give me the same answer, 5. And even something like 2 times 3 equals 6. And 2 plus 3 equals 5. Like the difference in numbers and operations. The next two signs kind of pair with one another. So the first one is having trouble with multi-step problems. Now, they cannot remember the steps and how to complete them, and it can be pretty easy to skip over steps as well. And do you know what's even harder is multi-step word problems. Now we have to read the word problem. We have to figure out what operation we're working with. We have to figure out the steps on how to complete it. And all of that can be tangled and twisted up very easily. The next one might be a little bit hard for me to articulate, but people who have dyscalculia have a hard time understanding that 4 and 4, they go together. The word and the shape or the symbol of 4, they pair up. They mean the same exact thing. It can be hard to know that. But also, knowing that this 4 is the same as this 4, like dots on the page. And on top of that, having different dots of 4, knowing that they're all saying the same thing. These are all 4 dots. But people who have dyscalculia, especially myself, I've had to do this. If they see like numbers on dice, they have to count 1, 2, 3, 4. They can't automatically see this and say, that's 4. They have to count it. I hope that was articulated correctly. The next sign is trouble with operations and the symbols, knowing that addition looks like this, subtraction looks like this, multiplication looks like an X. And knowing that when we say something like addition, 5 plus 3 equals 8, that's basically saying there's like a number plus a number is going to give you a bigger number, increasing the number, knowing that. They're adding 5 dots plus 3 dots equals the bigger number of 8 dots. That concept can really lack in people who have dyscalculia. Next sign is imagery. People who have dyscalculia have a very hard time picturing something like a quantity of 4 dots, or a number line, intuitively knowing that going up the number line is positive signs, while going down the number line is negative signs. And also number lines, there's multiple different units of number lines. You have to know that factor. You have to know the tick marks, what those little numbers, like teeny little numbers, mean. And all that together can be hard to know and also picture in our brain. This one I'm excited to tell you because it has been such a struggle in my life for so long, and when I got my diagnosis of dyscalculia, boom, it clicked as to why I struggled so much. Cents, money, intuitively knowing that this right here is a quarter, and knowing that there's multiple different ways to make up 25 cents. You could hand the cashier 25 cents, or you could do 5 pennies. I have 1 penny, 2 penny, 3, 4, 5 pennies, and 4 nickels. 1, 2, 3, 4. This right here is also appropriate to hand the cashier because it also says 25 cents. A different way that you can make 25 cents. 10, 10, and 5. 2 nickels, 2 dimes, and 1 nickel. Multiple different ways to get to the end approach of handing that cashier 25 cents, but it just doesn't really connect with us on all and visually seeing and knowing right off the bat what can we have in our hands that can make up that 25 cents or whatever number it is that you have to hand that cashier. Last couple of signs. Putting numbers in the incorrect order. 571. Well, someone with dyscalculia might look at that number and accidentally say 551 or 175. And there's a bunch of different ways that this number could appear other than this number that we actually want. If you do that constantly, that's a really big indicator of having dyscalculia, just as a little side note. People with dyscalculia have a very hard time reading analog clocks, knowing that the 6 on that analog clock actually means 30 minutes, or knowing how to skip count, and knowing the little tick marks in between each number all around the clock. All of that, huge difficulty for us. But there are a bunch of people out in the world who just don't really know how to read analog clocks nowadays because everything's digitalized. Okay, rapid fire misconceptions. A lot of people think that people who have dyscalculia see the numbers flipped in our heads. No, that's not true. We sometimes write it wrong or say it wrong, but that is all. We don't see them constantly flipping. Dyscalculia isn't common. The fact of the matter is we're not really sure because there's not a ton of research on dyscalculia, but we know that the percentage of the population is close to 3 to 7% as of right now. Dyscalculia is basically just number dyslexia. I don't really like that because number one, dyslexia involves the language processing, whereas dyscalculia involves the abstract concepts and the symbols and the imagery and just numbers in general. So that is all I'm going to say for that. You guys have made it to the end of this video. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I really hope that you found something valuable in this video. Please consider subscribing, liking, sharing. As always, the resources that I used to film this video is going to be down below in the description box. Please, if you know someone who has dyscalculia or a learning disability in general, or if you know someone who wants to know more about it, tell them about this YouTube account because there's going to be a lot of information on dyslexia and dyscalculia coming your way. And I'll see you on my next video. Bye, everyone!